If Ole Miss has a great signing day come December, this weekend will be why. We'll explain.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I'm your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we discuss the most important player of the 2026 recruiting class. Maybe not the top player, but the most important player. And he visited Ole Miss this weekend, and that shouldn't be a surprise because Lane Kiffin has landed his primary target for the last 3 years. And Deuce Geralds was on campus this weekend. The star-studded weekend didn't end there, as Izayia Williams, the top linebacker in the country, and Ole Miss commitment, visited campus unofficially as well, setting up a pretty massive couple of days to determine where they land in December. We also talk about Ole Miss getting a commitment from high point guard Kezza Giffa from France to continue that international flair for the 2025 Hoops Rebels. And finally, the Hoops House settlement got approved, well, for now, and we're 3 weeks away from another new world in college sports. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy over at Locked On SEC does a fantastic job. Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy does a fantastic job. Zach Blackerby, Locked On Auburn. Whatever floats your boat, find a second listen on the network for even more perspectives on college sports and the SEC. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Check out FanDuel.com. So this was a massive recruiting weekend for Ole Miss. I think at least 8 4-stars officially visited this weekend, including Deuce Geralds. And we're going to talk about him in just a second because, in my opinion, he is the most important recruit in this class. I talked with the Florida football scout, Brian Smith, Locked On's very own recruiting guru, about Deuce Geralds, and all he hears is Ohio State and Ole Miss, and he's going to take all of his visits. That's where he is right now. And honestly, if we're going to be real about it, Deuce Geralds should take all of his visits. Committing early would probably be difficult for somebody in position. So him taking all of his visits, that shouldn't surprise anyone, but it's going to be an Ole Miss-Ohio State battle. And if you ask me, I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss is going to win that battle because they know the type of player that Deuce Geralds is. Listen, he is one of the players that I have seen personally. I've seen him work out. He's one of the top players. I interviewed him at the Under Armour All-American game. Super nice kid. His concern with Lane Kiffin and what he wanted to see, and he has no chance to see that yet until games start playing. But he said to me directly that he wanted to see Lane Kiffin play high school players that were recruited, which means he's being negatively recruited by other schools to Ole Miss, saying that Lane Kiffin only plays transfers. And it makes sense. There's some good players that have come in the transfer portal over the last couple of years. But one of the biggest backfires in the history of college football recruiting may be about to turn around on Ryan Day or whoever is putting that in Deuce Geralds' head, because Ole Miss has a chance to have a completely high school defensive line in 2025. The odds are that they're going to have Cam Franklin, Jam Brown, Xavion Harris, and Suntaran Perkins as the starting defensive line. That's the odds-on favorite for this season, and that is all high school players that were recruited by Ole Miss. It could be a tremendous backfire, but Deuce Geralds is a guy that I've talked about this many times on the show, so if you've heard it, just bear with me. This is more for people just tuning in to what's going on. Deuce Geralds, if he was 3 more inches taller, would be the number 1 player in America. He was the MVP of the Polynesian Bowl. He is an elite pass rusher. The question that you have with Deuce Geralds is he going to grow into a 3 technique? And if he does, can he handle the inside run, the power plays, whenever people do gap schemes on the Ole Miss Rebels or whoever he goes to, would he be able to hold up as a defensive lineman? I think he would. He has all the athleticism in the world, and his dad obviously went to Ole Miss and was Jevin Snead's center. So Deuce Geralds has a chance to kind of make his own way and be a star. I like where Ole Miss sits with Deuce Geralds. There is not a commitment forthcoming, I do not believe. I think he's going to take all of his visits. The Florida football scout, Brian Smith, Locked On's recruiting guru, said the same thing to me this morning. So that's what it is. This is the recruiting guru that we got, Ohio State or Ole Miss, and he's going to take all his visits. That's kind of where it's sitting at the moment. Now, something really interesting happened yesterday as well. And when I say yesterday, I mean Saturday. Ole Miss got an unofficial visit from Izayia Williams, the linebacker out of Tavares County in Florida. Whenever you look at what he can do, really, really good football player. He is the number one linebacker in America, according to On3. He is the number 166 player in America, according to 247. Number 4 linebacker, number 38 player, according to ESPN, and the people that do the ESPN rankings saw him in the Under Armour All-American game. That is the reason he is ranked so high. And Rivals has him as a 5'9", 79th player in the country and coming into second linebacker as well. He comps very favorably to Suntarine Perkins. And he would be a seamless transition. Whenever Suntarine goes pro, Izayia Williams could slot directly in for Suntarine Perkins in that jack position and wreak havoc. He is the similar type player, a super athlete. He plays better going towards the line of scrimmage than backing up. I don't know if you want an Izayia Williams being a Harold Perkins style linebacker. When they took the aggression from Harold Perkins at LSU, the second year he wasn't quite the same player because he had to go backwards. Still a gifted athlete and he could do it, but is that really how to get the best out of this linebacker? And Pete Golding with Suntarine Perkins knows exactly how to handle Izayia Williams. Why this visit is important, being an unofficial visit. He is decommitted 3 or 4 times in this recruiting cycle, too much so that when you talk about this player, everybody says, well, will he make it to Ole Miss? I think it's going to be important for Lane Kiffin to get an official visit like this going into it. He gets through July, have him come to practice or an early game in September. And if you can get him to a game in October or November, you're probably going to end up landing him. Him taking the unofficial visit makes landing him seem even more possible. Great player. Pete Golding has it going on the defensive side of the ball. As information on the other players that officially visited this weekend, we will do more Cruton chatters over the course of the week. We just don't want to step on any toes of what's going on and wait for it to come out on free sources. That's what we do. We don't break news. We talk about news, and we'll see what's going on. Again, Deuce Geralds, big-time player. He is a top 100 player who's on ESPN. Again, he went to the Under Armour All-American game. They saw him up close. MVP of the Polynesian Bowl. Rivals.com has him as the number 33 player in the country. John Garcia, old friend of the program, is a analyst over at Rivals. 247 has him at 168. On3 has him at 147. He consensus plays as a top 100 recruit. Again, if he was just a couple inches taller, if he was literally taller than the 6'1" that he's listed to in, and if he's 6'1", he's probably closer to 6 foot. But if he was 6'4", he would be a top 5, top 10 player in the entire country. It's not kind of fair what's going on, but 6'1", 275, if that's accurate, that'll play. I don't know if he looks directly like that, but I have not seen him in several months. So we'll see exactly how that goes. He should be a really good player, and we'll see exactly what he does. You know, the Rebels are building an international identity. Another former player, foreign player commitment is in, and we'll break it all down next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performance, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Listen, I know baseball is kind of a four-letter word right now to Ole Miss fans, but over on MLB, Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green are kind of doing a really cool, like, imitation of a really great baseball combo at the moment. And the Tigers, at this point, have the best record in baseball. So maybe a same-game parlay in MLB would work for you. But if you were just Ole Miss when it comes to everything, Ole Miss comes in as a 37.5-point favorite versus Georgia State in the latest FanDuel odds. If you're new to FanDuel, that's fine. This is the perfect time to sign up. Head on over to FanDuel and place your first $5 bet. If you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, Ole Miss got a commitment last week from Kezza Giffa, a point guard, 6'2" out of High Point. He originally said he was going to transfer to USC, backed off of that commitment, decided to go to Ole Miss. They're expecting most everybody on campus as we speak, and this is going to be a very international-looking team for Chris Beard in his second year or third year at Ole Miss. Ole Miss coming off of a Sweet 16 to where they did some work in the NCAA basketball tournament. There's not too many people listening to this podcast that thought Michigan State was going to be able to win. Ole Miss fans were very excited by the end of Ole Miss basketball, and this is the most complete team I can think of that Chris Beard has put together. You have the point guard in Kezza Giffa. You have Ilias Kamerdine, the shooting guard out of France as well. You have Augusto Cassia, another player. There's a nice international flair developing on this basketball team. And you have a team to where the shortest player, instead of being 5'10", like it was, it's now like 6'2". The tallest player is not 7'4". It's not some freakishly tall basketball player, 6'10", 6'11". All the teams are starting to get a little bit closer together in their height and weight. And this Ole Miss basketball team has a chance to be pretty good. When you look at some of the players on this team, when you look at a Kezza Giffa, who averaged 14 points last year at High Point, when you look at players that stand out, Ilias Kamerdine, he was the Eurobasket under 20 MVP of that tournament. Augustus Cassia got injured at Butler, another big-time player. There's players all over this roster that is intriguing at a very, very high level. It's interesting to see. The signees of Tyus Jordan and Patton Pinkins, really good players. Really good players. Nico Bundalo has a chance to be the special big man that Ole Miss has needed. When you look at Travis Perry, just a couple of weeks ago, the coach at Kentucky said this guy was on his way to being a legend here. When you look at A.J. Storr at Wisconsin, he was a machine. At Kansas, he struggled a little bit. If he hits that Kansas run of form, he's a really good basketball player that averaged, I think, 18 points at Wisconsin. Corey Chest is an athletic machine. Had nearly 20 rebounds against Alabama. Corin Johnson got injured at Louisville, but at Washington, he was a six-man microwave-type player off of the bench. James Scott out of Louisville is somebody that can help out down low. You can see where this basketball team is coming from. And Kezza Giffa, his average is down. His first season at High Point, he averaged 16 points per game. This Ole Miss basketball team is kind of being built more in that Chris Beard image. I am really interested to see this team come together and what they look like. They have a chance to be really good. They're 2 or 3 deep with players that can play the point. What they need on the outside will determine what they do with the shooting guard and the small forward. It can go several different ways, and you can make the lineup look a lot of different ways. How they are set up down low is interesting because Malik Dia now can be that kind of do everything Swiss Army knife type player for Ole Miss. Players, this team has a chance to be extremely versatile. They'll no middle defense. They'll switch on everything, and they can do it because they are built in a way that can do that. This basketball team has a chance to be fun. It has a chance to be potentially Elite Eight, Final Four level fun once this thing gets going. I like Ilias Kamerdine. He looks like a one and done potentially for the Ole Miss basketball program as far as what he could do. This is a guy that could very well be in the NBA in just a year's time. And everybody's going to see him play and be like, yeah, I can see that. Kezza Giffa running the point guard position. He is somebody that distributes very well. He makes it to where it's easy for the shooters to get off the shots. And Ole Miss is much more athletic down low than they have been in years past. And because of that, you're not going to see a situation where everybody just tries to get Ole Miss's 5'10" guards matched up in their switching defense on a 6'10" forward, and you can be able to bully ball them. Kezza Giffa, 6'2", 175, but if you realize what's going on, that's better than a 5'10". That's 4 inches or so from 5'10". So we'll see exactly how it goes. I'm pretty fired up about this Chris Beard defense and where it could end up. And I'm very fired up about the fact that this house settlement has gone through. And what that means is the amateur era of college sports that has existed for 119 years in America, it ends July 1st. What does that mean? So in our final segment, the house settlement has officially passed, and we're breaking down what that means and where college sports are headed next. Should be really interesting to see. All right, the house settlement passed on, I think it was on Friday. They signed it at the end of the day. It passed. It's a situation where $20.5 million or something like that can be paid. It's not required that it happens, but anybody that is serious about any sports is going to pay that level of money. I think Ole Miss is going to pay that level of money, and they're still going to have their collective in tow. We're going to have Walker Jones on this week to explain what is going on with the house settlement. What I know is right now they're looking at this from the college sports perspective as a $20 million expense that they didn't have a year ago. So if a school has a $140 million budget, it's not that they all of a sudden have a $120 million budget. They have a $20 million expense they have to take care of. When you look at Tennessee, they put a tax on tickets inside the stadium and just called it a player procurement tax. When you look at Ole Miss, they raised the price of parking. They raised the price and started charging for people to set up tents in the Grove, a tax that is going on to the fan base. And eventually Ole Miss is going to raise prices on tickets as well, because this is viewed as a $20 million new expense and not just taking the budget from $140 million to $120 million. We will never be in favor of the fans taking the brunt of what needs to happen. We will never be in favor of the fans not being asked and not being able to help the collective because of something the school is doing. And some schools are shuttering their collectives in the name of this official payment thing, where the $20.5 million comes in there. They're shuttering their collectives. Others are just kind of folding their collectives into their athletic department. And we will talk with Walker about what Ole Miss is doing and how that handles. Now, whenever you look at this settlement, starting July 1st, each school will be allowed, but not required, to spend roughly $20.5 million in new payments to their athletes. That figure comes from a negotiated formula that caps athletes' payments at 22% of the actual average annual revenue that FBS schools get from ticket sales, broadcast rights, and a few other items. The cap will grow on a regular basis during a 10-year lifespan of the settlement as the school's revenue expands and via scheduled incremental increases. Sports economist Daniel Rusher, a subject matter expert used in the settlement process, wrote that he expects it will grow to more than $30 million per year by the time the deal expires. So anybody that thinks that ticket prices are not going to go up, ticket prices are going to go up. Many sports lawyers, though, expect that key parts of this settlement will spur a new barrage of lawsuits. Both the negotiated salary cap, the College Sports Commission's attempts to stifle deals between athletes and third parties could be a target of future antitrust challenges. And schools also are going to have to defend their position to provide most of the new payments to men's sports teams against the claims that their budgets violate Title IX, a federal law that prohibits gender-based inequality. It's, to me, that right there, the last one, that's nothing, because if you look at the amount of money that gets brought in, it's hard to place the argument of what's going on. 90% of the money is going to go to college football and college basketball, because college football and college basketball are the reasons that 90% of the money get put there. So women's basketball and baseball and all that will have a tiny incremental thing. Now, another thing that schools are going to be looking to doing, Ole Miss is going to be all in on football and basketball. Absolutely, it's going to happen. But if you do not have a football team, if you are one of the Big East schools like Marquette, for instance, and decide you want to be a player on the basketball space, you can flip that 90% to where they're donating most of their money of the $20.5 million to basketball. Since there's no football team, they have that level of advantage. And some schools, like likely Mississippi State, if we're going to be honest about it, Mississippi State is likely to do something like this. They have an overimportance on college baseball. College baseball to everywhere else is probably only worth about 3 or 4% of that $20.5 million. But at Mississippi State, it may be higher. This is a place that is struggling on NIL because they spent all of their money to kind of update Dudy Noble Field, which is very nice. It is awesome, but there is no ROI on Dudy Noble Field. You can see what's going on. And like I said, whenever a clearinghouse says this amount of money is an okay NIL deal that they're going to try and use to phase out collectives, again, we'll talk to Walker Jones if barring technology tonight about that. That's going to be sued almost immediately. Think about that. Think about what can happen there. And it could blow up the whole house settlement when that happens. So the important thing to realize, while the amateur model is done in college sports, and if you have a problem with that, sucks to be you, honestly, because there's no putting that toothpaste back in the tube. None. It's going to happen. July 1st will be the end of the amateurism model. But how it looks, the chaos that we have lived under the last 10 years or so, all of that stuff still exists. Basically, the only thing that this house settlement has done has effectively killed the amateurism model. There's no such thing as student athletes anymore. And because of that, because everybody is getting a check, because of all that stuff, you're going to see college sports athletes get treated like professional athletes, for better or worse. When you look at the way I handle stuff and the way I handled it a year ago, often to the detriment, for whatever reason, to certain parents who didn't like what I was saying, it was because they're making 3 times more money than the general listener of this audience has a chance to get. You're not going to be treated with kids' gloves. You're not going to be treated as somebody that's just suiting up for a home team. when you're making that kind of money. You're not. And that's going to continue you see it spread around fan bases around college football to the point where they're treated like professional athletes, and they should be treated like professional athletes. If you're making that much money, you don't get the benefit of don't be mean to them. They're just kids. It is what it is. So we'll see exactly how that goes and where this house settlement leads. Now we have Walker Jones coming up, barring technology, tonight. And he is going to walk us through this. He's going to walk us through what the Grove Collective is doing to try and stop any bleeding, how Ole Miss can be ahead of the game like they have been the last few years. Walker Jones is going to be here to explain all of that. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your go-to source for Ole Miss sports. We pride ourselves in offering the most comprehensive perspectives, which is why we are the front door to Ole Miss, to recruits and anybody that wants to learn a little bit more about the Ole Miss Rebels. They come right here, and that is awesome. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. Hotty toddy, everybody. This is probably the last week in this studio. New studio is being built. We're going to try and move in next weekend. We'll see how it goes. Remember, everybody, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.